you're ready to go, mate, I'll kick-start it.
Mate, I'd love to. Let's rock and roll, Jaden.
Let's rock and roll. All right. Hey, guys, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 17 of Couch to the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. On today's episode, I've got Wayde Custerson from the D and DOS Show, a podcast series that's very similar to mine in terms of mental health and trying to spread that awareness that you're not alone and that there are other people that you can talk to when you're feeling, down in the dumps. How's it going, mate?
Good, Jaden. I'm going very well, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. To be honest, I wasn't expecting a quick response. I only messaged you probably, 3 or 4 days ago, and within 20 minutes, mate, you were pretty eager to come on. And, mate, it's great to have you on.
Well, fellow podcaster, mate, we gotta help each other out and stick together. And so, mate, I'm stoked to chew the fat with you. We'll have a really good chat. Yeah, can't wait to get into it.
Bloody oath, mate. And I think you kind of summed it up very well in that because of what you and I and Daniel, your co-host on the D and DOS Show, we are doing.
I'm going to quickly jump in there because he's going to stew over this. It's called the DOS and D Show. I'm first, not him, because he will run with that from absolute mile. The DOS and D Show. He'll love that too,
mate. I've just put Daniel on a pedestal.
You have, mate. And we did say before the show, I was like, are we going to have a laugh here, or we're already having a laugh? I like it.
But yeah, in terms of what, yourself and I and Daniel are trying to do in the field of mental health, because it's such a touchy subject, you find that not a lot of people will reach out to you because it's a big thing to reach out to those when you're struggling.
Spot on. And I haven't asked Daniel, but when we started, it was a bit of, we want to change the world, like we're going to start this podcast and through our connections with people we know, and we're going to take off, we're going to become these, coaches as such. And, we looked at it as like this, I guess more of a business plan. And then it actually became really draining. And, COVID, it was in the middle of COVID, and we just weren't enjoying it like we were at the start. And then, it was like you said, Jaden, it was about getting it back to basics and doing it, reminding yourself what was the reason why you started to do it. And that was if you impact one person, well, you've done your job. And that's really been our goal is, our 3 words are, vulnerable, relatable, empowering. As long as we stick to those 3 core values in every show, whether it be an interview or a one-on-one with me and D, like we just want to have fun, and it's our hobby. It's what we look forward to. We both take Fridays off every week to work on the show together and just spend time together because we're best mates. I think it's so important to have an outlet, and that's our outlet.
No, that's awesome, mate. For you to have that acknowledgement that not only are you trying to make a difference in the world, and that's ultimately the goal that you're setting out to achieve with Daniel, for a fact that it's actually benefiting yourself and Daniel as well in the long run. Whether you've gone through, negative things in the past or at present time, you find that talking about these things, and even maybe it actually makes you guys feel a little bit more comfortable sharing those tougher times together. But in terms of the topic we'll be going over, obviously I've mentioned it to you prior to the episode, but to the listeners tuning in today, the topic of this episode is called "You're Not Alone." And the reason why I've named it "You're Not Alone" is because we're both doing the same sort of thing, and I guess it's good to know that there are other people out there that are trying to make a difference in this world in terms of mental health as such. And then when on the other side of things, when you're struggling mentally with something, there's a lot of times where you probably feel like as if you're the only one going through that particular instance. Like everyone's all, having the perfect life, running through, buddy, sunshine and rainbows in the background, buddy, going to the beach, having fun, going for a surf, and they just go on with life. Whereas you're just in this doom and gloom state and you can't get out of it. And I'm here to say that that's not the case, and you're not alone. So that's why I've named it that name. And I guess for yourself, DOS, I know I've heard your story about, something in particular that happened to you in your life that probably put you in this state of mind.
Definitely. I wouldn't say I ever, I guess, experienced like a real depression as such. ever. But I know, as your listeners would know as well, is everyone struggles with some type of worry, angst, anxiety, and that can be due to a circumstance, a situation, an external factor that you can't control. And that external factor for me was, so my dad got diagnosed with cancer in 2016, and then we lost my dad 8 weeks after that. So it was pretty rapid and really probably just a shock. Just your life can just change in an instant.
Sorry to hear that, man.
No, thank you, Jaden. And it's been a few years now, and yeah, it's I love talking about my dad, and because he was an incredible man, and he still impacts my life and will forever. But what it's done for me, it's probably given me a bit of an outlook on life that I think everyone's going to get eventually at some point or another, which it's horrible, but death is a part of life, and it's just something we're all going to be faced with, whether it's our own mortality or looking at the mortality of someone else. But in that circumstance, that's what's happened to me, and that probably is been a huge factor in me wanting to make a difference in the world now, and live every day like it's like it's your last. I know it's very cliche, but yeah, those times I definitely felt some type of alone. I never felt a depression or a big deep hole that I was in or anything like that, but I definitely had days when, and I still do, mate, like when you do feel you just feel a bit off, and it's okay to feel a bit off. I had an off day yesterday, if I'm really honest, Jaden, and it's probably really fitting that we're having this chat, because the last 2 days I've been feeling super off, just a cloud of real, just sadness, and that can be due for a lack of sleep, some shitty food that I've been eating, watching telly too much or on my phone too much. Like, it's amazing what these things can do. And then all of a sudden I've got some subconscious, stories going in the back of my head, things that have happened. And, with a mixture of those stories in your head with these things that I'm feeding myself, it's just a bad combination, and you can end up in a really bad spot. But yeah, mate, I'm keen to hear your thought on, I guess, your experience with this, especially with the podcast stuff.
Yeah. And mate, I honestly, man, this is the first time we're having an actual conversation with each other. But from me to you, from someone who has gone through some bad stuff as well, I'm proud of you for where you are now and for what you're trying to do and achieving to help other people overcome, this state of mind.
Thank you, mate. No, I appreciate the acknowledgement.
But yeah, going back to the idea of feeling lonely, I mean, when you were in that particular, when you were going through that particular time frame, did you feel that, I don't know, did you manage to speak to other people that may have been struggling, not necessarily, with that specific, instance, they may have been struggling through depression and stuff, and you might have felt like as if you weren't the only one that was going through a bad state of mind, and it kind of lifted your mood and allowed you to not move on necessarily, but get over
no,
this
I
stage.
know what you mean.
Yeah,
that's probably one thing I've been super lucky with and blessed with, is being surrounded by really great people. I've always been very lucky that I was shown by both my mum and my dad that the importance of surrounding yourself with, a good network. My dad he would always say, your sphere of influence. Who is in your sphere of influence? And that sphere is only very, it's not huge. It's very small, and that could mean having a really close friend. That could mean having someone coaching you in business. It could mean a relationships counselor. It could mean a psychologist that's helping you. Like, your sphere includes the people that are going to help you become the best person that you can.
Yeah.
And I was very, very lucky and blessed that I had some really good people in my sphere through that time. And still to this day, I've probably even actually, it chops and changes. You grow as you grow older. I was 21 when that happened. I'm 26 now. Life moves on, and people go on and do their own things, and you never lose connections or friendships, but you know what it's like when everyone's off doing their own thing. That's just what happens. But when that happens, I've then brought new people into my sphere, connecting with new people, expanding out to try and ask for help. Like you said, is there someone that you question? Was there someone else that was in a similar boat to myself around that mental health, or that current stage of my mental health? There probably wasn't necessarily a person that I guess was in a similar mindset to me. It was more me actually being pretty open in terms of, hey, I'm struggling. Can you help me? And mate, 20 times out of 10, someone that I know and is in my sphere is going to say, mate, like, oh, ring me anytime. And I'm like that to quite a few other people I'm in their sphere. They might not word it like that, but that's the way I see it. So yeah, that's been my anchor as such, having my sphere of influence and making sure that I'm actually utilizing these people and telling them when I'm feeling a bit ordinary. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome, man. And I think the main thing to pick on with what you're saying is that no matter what someone may recommend that you should do, which could benefit you, you've got to want to help yourself. And for yourself, you had surrounded yourself with such amazing people in your what you call sphere, but you reached a point when you knew that it was time to open up to those people and actually share and express to them what you truly were experiencing from the inside. Because on the outside, a lot of people put on this front and you don't really get a grasp of what they're actually feeling like.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess I don't know about you, Jada, but I'm very much an open book when it comes to being myself, and I'm sure you can probably tell just by our conversation, mate. Like, it's not, it's not a confidence thing. I just find it easy to feel comfortable in front of people, and sometimes that can probably be, I wouldn't say negative, but you can trust people too quickly and too much when you don't know that person enough, and when you might then, be put into a negative experience, for something like that, you might trust someone so much and you might be taken advantage of. I don't know. That can obviously, keep you, feeling pretty vulnerable and not wanting to reach out again to someone else. So, that is the hardest bit, reaching out to someone when you are struggling. And, it's so easy to say. It's way easier said than done. And that's, something that I've got quite a few friends, and I'll push to them. It's make sure when you are feeling a little bit, a little bit blue and a little bit down, it's so important to reach out. But I also totally get guys that, for example, Jaden, like we're sitting here talking about this. There's going to be guys and girls that might hear this and it's just two guys talking about mental health. And a lot of people talk about mental health and how you need to speak up and speak up. And
they'll be like, oh, what can I actually gain out of this? Blah, blah, blah. Where's the credit card payment?
Well, it's easy for me and you to just talk about it, but like it's the reality is it's depression and anxiety, that they are diseases.
Yeah.
They are real health concerns. So when I say reach out to a friend, I'm not half-assed in saying that. It's really difficult to do that, and I'm real about that, and I understand that my mates, when they don't want to, I get it, but I'm also very firm in a way where is, hey, if you don't do this, I'll be pushing you. Like, you got to tell me, like, because there's too many people that I know that have ended their own life due to this. And to be honest, mental health isn't my, we're talking about it, but it's not something that I preach or talk about a lot, mate. So, I'm probably sharing some things that I probably haven't shared before. So, it's good to actually talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things where you can, once you find that comfort with the particular person you may be sharing or wanting to talk to about something that you may have held on to for a long time, and you mightn't have actually spoken openly about it. It's, it rebuilds the bridges, and you can, you feel like as if a weight of bricks has been lifted off your shoulders once you're able to, when you're vulnerable enough to be able to do something like that. And I guess the other point is, once you've actually reached that point of feeling comfortable talking to people openly about, something you may be struggling with, it's about having someone to listen to you, whether it's negative or positive. It could be you come home, you've actually had a great day and you actually want to share that happiness with someone. Just having someone there to talk about how amazing your day was, it can be a massive impact on that person, because they may have had a shit couple of weeks, and finally, for some reason, they've had an amazing day at work, and they want to share that, that feeling of happiness. And it's interesting enough, I actually read this article on BBC News, and back in 2018, they actually launched a loneliness experiment on Valentine's Day in 2018. And 55,000 people in the world kind of took part in this experiment. And Claudia Hammond, who investigated the project, she spoke to three people that were in part of this experiment in regards to loneliness. And they stated that it's like a void, a feeling of emptiness. If you have a good piece of news or a bad piece of news, it's not having that person tell about it. Locking these people in your life can be really hard. I restate that it's so important to have people there for you, whether it's good or bad news, because as I just stated, it could be that one good day out of a month that you want to share with someone, because you finally feel so much better for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw a little a quote out, and I got this out of, I think it's out of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, I think. So there's two types of people in this world. There's one person that walks into a room and goes, "Here I am." And there's another type of person in this world that walks into a room and goes, "There you are." In my opinion, I want to be the person that walks into a room and goes, "There you are." And when you share that statistic, the importance of being there for someone, like you say, through the happy times, the bad times, the in-between moments where, life is just a routine. That's where also, we talk about having a good partner. I don't know if you're in a relationship yourself, but
not at the moment, mate. Just flying solo.
But and don't worry, just recently out of a relationship, and I was with my partner for 3 years, and it is lonely. Like
might have to apply for maths, mate. You and I.
Yeah, we might, mate. Because we get up to some trouble, I reckon. But yeah. And I get big chunks of loneliness, and there's times when something good is happening, and I want to go and tell her, but I can't message her, I can't ring her because that was my choice, and I needed this time
to grow
now. And I also I want to refer to, I'm a big podcaster and reader, and I love fueling my brain with lots of different, bits and pieces. But Matthew Hussey, who's a dating and relationships coach, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's English.
No, explain.
So I've heard him on a couple of podcasts, but he basically talks about when you go to Disneyland. He went to Disneyland when he was a kid, and what amazed him, it wasn't the rides, it wasn't, the mascots, it was the rubbish bins, right, at Disneyland. And hear me out here.
What?
You're looking at me like a minute. Yep, the rubbish bins.
All right, go on.
He said, because every rubbish bin was detailed to every part of Disneyland, whether you're in the Indiana Jones world or the Mickey Mouse world of Disneyland or the water park, or every single rubbish bin was detailed. Like, think about it. A rubbish bin is rubbish, but every single bin was detailed to the T of, what it is. And you know why? Because think of how many times someone actually goes on a ride at Disneyland. It might be 1 or 2 times. How many times would they actually use the rubbish bin when they're in Disneyland, though? Probably thousands of times. Probably hundreds of times.
Shitloads.
Exactly. So it's in those moments, the rubbish bins stand for those moments when it's just days. It's just day to day. It's when you want to come home and tell your partner or your friend or your mum or dad about a shit day. It's in those moments where you need to be your most colourful self, because we spend more time in those moments than any other moment, because there's going to be highs and awesome moments and awesome experiences. We're going to have birthday parties, we're going to go to the footy, or we're going to have events and weddings and whatnot, and they're all great. But then we're going to have really crap and ordinary times, where we're going to have funerals, we're going to have days when we're really sick, we're going to have but the most time that we spend in our day is that middle ground. And it's so important to make sure that middle ground, that especially when it comes to interacting with our loved ones, that we are giving them our full attention, just like they've given the rubbish bins their full attention. They've detailed them to the finest, because they know that everyone is going to use them 100 times that day.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I've never heard of that concept before, mate. But I can see what you're saying, in that the artists on with these rubbish bins, they put so much detail into making them fit for each theme in Disneyland, that we do pay a lot of attention to it. We will. Who doesn't go to Disneyland and not buy a decent feed, or a big, I don't know, hot dog or greasy chips
Yeah,
or something? Everyone's gonna. I mean, probably 8 times out of 10, people are gonna chuck in the bin. Out of that 10, there are probably 2 times that people will probably miss the bin, and probably not do
yeah.
not do the old Kobe, and it'll probably fall on the
Kobe,
floor.
yeah,
But
yeah,
even if they do miss, their attempt is to try and get into the bin, and their full attention is directed to that bin as such. So I know what you're saying, in that we do spend a lot of time in that rubbish bin sort of state of mind when you come home, and it's sort of like on repeat. If you're at home still living with your parents, you might be working full time. You come home, you see your parents, the process continues day on end. Every single day you come home, and it's the same sort of thing on repeat. Why not, when you're in that state of mind, give them their full attention and actually ask,
exactly,
hey,
exactly.
hey, what's going on? Because in reciprocation, if you're struggling, wouldn't you want to be asked the same sort of questions?
Yep, spot on. We need to detail out those middle ground parts of our day, like Disneyland have detailed the rubbish bins. That's what we need to do,
Yeah.
because those people around us deserve that. My mum deserves that. I don't want to walk into the house and it's I'm back at home now, and it's very easy to get just caught up in come home from work, boots are off, straight in the shower.
Yeah.
Mum, when's tea ready? All right, I'm putting the PlayStation on, like, or I'm or editing the podcast, and it's easy to do that, but it's really
Yeah.
important to try your best to really be aware, for sure.
Well, something I've actually learned, or something, someone actually told me. I can't remember who it was, but it was a year ago when I was going through this men's talking group. Someone actually told me within that group that it's so easy to be in that state of mind when you come home from work and you don't want to talk to anyone. You just want to go in the shower, do your own thing, and then nick off somewhere.
Mm.
Even if you've got to take 5 minutes out of your day just to tell your loved ones, I need my own space. I just need to, go have a nice shower. You come out the shower, and then boom, you go back in that state of mind where you're ready to be open to having
Mm.
conversation with them, and hearing how their day was. Like
Yeah,
you've got to, even if you got to do that to get to that point, then
yeah,
just acknowledge it and make it happen.
spot on. We go through a book that I love to read, and I've read it numerous times. It's called High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. And the key part of that book that I get out of it is how many transitions we have a day, how many different transitions we go through each and every day. So one transition could be, a transition is as simple as this. I'm waking up and I step out of my bed. That's a transition.
Oh shit, mate! We would have thousands of transitions then.
Exactly. Spot on. And he says that in the book. We have thousands of transitions a day. A transition could be, you get home from work, you've had a horrible day at work, you're still at home with your parents. So before you get in the house, it's take a breath and actually maybe count backwards from 10, take a big breath, and then walk in the house.
Well, it comes back to that idea of the cliche saying of what happens at work stays at work, and you leave it there, and tomorrow's a new day, and you move on, and like you said, you transition into whatever else you may be doing in that afternoon.
Spot on. But unfortunately though, mate, not every it's very hard to leave your work
Oh
shit at
yeah,
work.
oh yeah,
Depending on what industry you're in, for a lot of people who run their own businesses, or they are managers, or they they're probably thinking about work 85, 90% of the time, because it is their livelihood, and it does mean food on the table, and it does mean paying the bill. For me at the moment, I'm not in that situation, and I want to be one day. I would love to run a business or own a business, but I'm not at that stage of my life yet. But for us, we need to take advantage of being able to leave that shit at the door.
oh, 100%
And know
right.
you can, leave it at work, and know I can come home. Yeah, don't let it affect your relationships. No way.
Yeah, 100%, Matt. You couldn't have said it any better. But in terms of the podcast itself, you said that you went through that unfortunate stage of losing your dad, and that kind of awakened you to want to help other people who may be going through some negative times themselves. And I'm assuming you may have spoken to Daniel about this. I'm not going to say the Daniel and Doss show, mate. I promise you, I'll get it right. The Doss and Daniel show, mate, or the Doss and D show. That's if getting it right for the listeners. But yeah, obviously you spoke to Daniel about creating this podcast series, and since starting it, have you feel like as if maybe both yourself and Daniel have are better at handling those tougher times, and also have you received any feedback from some of the episodes that you've put out?
Yeah, well, so the way I'll go back to how it kind of started. So, and by any, we're not big by any stretch. We're just, a small little community podcast that, again, like I said at the beginning, it's an outlet for us. We do it for a bit of fun. The goal is to get some, great guests on to hopefully empower our community, and if not more people out, reach people outside our community as well. But so Dee and I went to school together, went to high school together, and we were both kind of very self-conscious, low confidence, overweight teenagers. And we were in this friendship circle, and we were both in a similar situation. And it got to we both turned about 17 or 18. And I remember at that stage, I started realizing I found someone introduced me to the gym, and I lost a bunch of weight, and all of a sudden my confidence kind of increased, and I became, happier within myself. And, I just saw life differently. Don't get me wrong, I still struggle with a lot of self-confidence issues, and that's another topic we could dive down. And D was the same. And then D went through his stage, and he lost a bunch of weight, and, and he went through his own transformation. So to put it short, we both went through these transformations from not just physically, but low self-esteem, low confidence, and to come to the other side of that. A few years later, that's probably going on 5-6 years, we've both wanted to grow in terms of our self-development, like what your podcast, this great show that you're doing.
Thank you.
About trying to improve not only your life, but the lives of other people. And
spot on.
And we wanted to do that, as in for ourselves. So we're always reading books, we're always listening to podcasts, I'm going to courses. We know we want something more out of life. We don't want to just, from A to B to C to D. That's kind of the way we're drilled to live. Whereas I want to go from A to Z, Z to J to B. I don't want there to be complete structure, because I don't think life really, I don't think life needs to be as structured as what we've been taught for so long. And then through that, we were like, hey, how about we start a little podcast? We both kind of thought we wanted to start a podcast individually. I wanted to start my own, and he wanted to start his own. And I was like, why don't we just do one together? It's just, it's so great to be able to do something that you enjoy doing. Yeah.
No, mate, big tops to you and Daniel for what you're doing, man. And where you guys are at now, like in the state of mind that you're in now, it's so easy to be that open book. But I'm probably almost certain that when you first started off this podcast, you would have been quite angst with regards to how people may react to what you have to say. Just being open and being, allow yourself to, like you said, be vulnerable enough to talk about some certain things that you're struggling with. That it's a touchy subject in society, because that old mate that lives next door or whatever is probably going through the same sort of thing.
Spot on, mate. And even our mums, both our mums listen every week. And sometimes you do think, I wonder what my mum would think by me opening up about this. But at the same time, I go, you know what? This is why we're doing this, because I think so many young men and women can't talk to their mum or their dad or their siblings, the people that are closest to them, because we're always told never talk about this, never talk about that around the dinner table, whereas these topics should be talked about.
I know what you mean. And I know what you mean.
Yeah. And by, my mum hearing this, my mum comes up to me and goes, oh, wait, I didn't know that. And it sparks a conversation. But yeah, mate, we were both very kind of cautious and a bit iffy. And are we going to be standing on any eggshells? Our latest episode, we did something that we'd never ever done before, which was we went really deep and, you know, philosophical, like, and talked about things that probably aren't all on our, I guess, we're not experts by any means, but, you know, we went against the grain of what we normally do. And, you know, we probably were ready for a bit of backlash in terms of our strong opinions on a couple of things. But I think that's also so important is, you know, making sure that
got to back yourself, man. That's it.
Yeah, exactly, mate. So, but no, mate, we're just you just got to take it as it comes, and then just wear it. If it's you know, if someone's got something negative to say, you wear it, and if it's something positive, you wear that too. But you know, I'm never someone who suffers from tall poppy syndrome, and I always, you know, try and remember this too. And my dad always taught me this is, you know, you never need to. We want to be the biggest podcast, you know, in Australia. That's what we would love. And if we were to get that, the only way to do that is not by tearing other people's buildings down to get ours as the highest. It's just, you know, supporting and, you know, supporting other businesses and podcasts and people that are on a similar path, and being a team and creating, you know, being a community. And I think you don't have to tear anyone else's building down to, you know, to become the biggest. And if anything, we don't want to become the biggest. It's just, we want to impact more and more people. That's what we want to do.
Well, like it says, you don't want to be the Jason Taumalolo of the, you know, the rugby league world, mate. You don't want to be running through the packs or anything. You know, you just work on what you and Daniel are trying to do and improve, and the more you put into it, and the more you learn, and the more over time you get better at the art of podcasting. Your listeners will start to boom, mate. And you know, just from having this conversation with you, I know for a fact that what you're saying and what you're trying to achieve is coming from a genuine place. And I just know that, mate, in years to come, mate, you'll be on the iTunes buddy podcast charts, and I'll be remembering this day.
Oh, mate, we'll be having to chase you first, so don't worry about that.
Oh no, mate, don't put me on this pedestal. Daniel's still on
it. yeah.
Look, mate, thank you very much for this conversation with me today, mate, in terms of, you know, just being so upfront and honest with how you started this podcast series, you know, some of the negative things in terms of, you know, having lost your dad, unfortunately, 6 years ago, and how you got out of that deep and dark tunnel, and ultimately you're trying to better this world and creating awareness for mental health or some other touchy subjects that you never thought you'd ever talk about.
No, exactly, mate. And I'll just acknowledge you, Jaden, for doing what you're doing. You know, it's not easy, and, you know, us like you, it's important for those that want to impact and empower us to support one another. And, mate, you know, just credit to you. And any way we can, you know, we want to support you as well. So, you know, we'd love to have you on the Dos and D show. So make sure you clear your schedule, mate.
It'd be an honor,
bro. But yeah, like, if I just think what you're doing, it's hard, mate. And I'm slowly realizing that, and you've probably been doing this a bit longer than me or us, but, you know, to keep persisting with something like this, you know, it can be challenging, and it's out of, you know, it's not, you know, you get home from work and you do this. So good on you for sticking at it. And, you know, we're just going to make sure that we, you know, encourage each other and empower one another to keep at it, because what we're doing, you know, we are helping at least one person, mate. So just remember that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And know that you've always got my contact details if you're ever having an off day.
Thanks,
and you
mate.
need to have a yarn. But I guess
that,
one question I kind of want to ask you to end this episode is along the lines of, you know, stepping out of your comfort zone and starting up your own personal podcast series. For someone who wants to make an impact in this world, but they're just so afraid to make that jump, what would you suggest that they do?
It's a great question. The biggest thing that I would encourage anyone who is just contemplating, or not necessarily contemplating, but they know deep down that they've got an itch, you know. And sometimes when you just have that slight itch, that's all you need to really scratch. And even though some people will tell you not to scratch it, bloody scratch it, because, like, that is your itch, you know. Everyone, but everyone,
it's so bloody true, mate. Like,
yeah. everyone, not everyone itches the same, and your itch is different to my itch, and it's so important to give stuff a crack, because what I've realized is, and every, you know, guy and influencer and whatever personal development guru on Instagram, they all say, who cares about what anyone thinks, blah blah blah, and it is true. But when push comes to shove, it's hard to put yourself out there. It really is. But if you have somewhat that tiny itch, you know, what have you got to lose? And I think that's the biggest thing me and Daniel both realize is, you know what, like, we're putting ourselves out here. What's the worst thing that can happen? And unfortunately, like, it might be a bit shitty at first, but you got to start somewhere. And unfortunately, I think so many people we're perfectionists, and we don't want to start or do something because I might stuff up or, you know, stutter here, and I might.
Yeah.
Who cares? Just do it, because, you know, how are you going to grow and improve if you don't start? And, you know, the most important thing is just to start. And my dad, and this is probably a great way to finish, actually, is my dad always told us, like, so I'm one of three. I've got two, you know, amazing sisters. I'm in the middle. He always told us, inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard. And that correlates to everything in my life. And that is, don't look at the big picture. Look at today. What can I do today? You know, if I want to start a podcast, what can I do today to get closer to that? It's not thinking, oh, I want to be the biggest podcast in the world, and to do that, I got to do this course, and got to buy this gear and this and that. No, mate, grab your phone. Your headphones have a little microphone, and just start talking. What do you want to talk about? Google, YouTube, like, the technology and the, you know, what we have access to in terms of learning and educating ourselves, it's incredible. You know, I think of my dad. He would have loved to have started a podcast if he was brought up in this generation. I'm telling you, like, so he would have. And so probably, yeah, just make the most of what we've got, you know. And no one really cares as much as you probably think they do. That's probably a really big thing.
No, mate, couldn't have said it any better. I know exactly what you're saying. You just take every day as it comes in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and you know, that end goal of what you're trying to you know, attain, and in terms of, you know, becoming a massive podcast will become attainable. You know, you just look, you know, baby steps, and eventually you'll get to the end. But mate, thank you, mate. Thank you so much for sharing, man.
Nah, mate, a pleasure, mate.
But yeah, this has been season 2, episode 17 of Couch in the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. And to listeners today, this has been Wayde Custerson from the Dos and D show, joining me in conversation revolving around the topic of You're Not Alone. I'll leave their details in the link below if you want to check out their podcast series. I mean, I'd highly recommend it. The blokes are absolute legends, apart from the fact that Dos does go for the Western Bulldogs. So if you can kind of write that off, they're good blokes all in all. But
you're a star, mate. You're an absolute star. And, thanks again for having me on.
Anytime, brother. Anytime. But as always, listeners, if ever need anything, just you know where to contact me on the Facebook page. Catch you later, and have a great rest of the week.